Hello everyone and welcome back to my dream world. So, we just saw Halloween night on season 34 of Dancing with the Stars, and I have a lot of thoughts about what's going on the show, on the social media of the show. So, we're going to get into it. Once again, so sorry that this video was late. I had a few issues with my live video this week, so I didn't get around to watching the rest of the show because of other work commitments. YouTube is kind of just a little bit of a hobby for me right now, so, it's not a hardcore priority for me, but I still wanted to get this video out, and I did want to let you all know that from now on I am making videos dedicated to the celebs that are eliminated each week on TikTok and on my casual YouTube channel. So if you'd like to see those, please subscribe, follow, and check those out. Let me know what you think. I am super open and excited to hear everyone else's opinions. My Scott video is already up, and Jen's I'm hoping to have up within the next day of this video coming out. So before I get into my thoughts on the show, if you're new to this series, hi, I'm Karina. I work in the entertainment industry, theater, film, TV, all of that. I am not a dancer, so if you have thoughts as a dancer or a dance teacher that you want to give me and correct me on any technical things, I am super open to that, and please do. But, I am just a viewer that has been watching this show since about season 30, and I enjoy making commentary on the shows that I watch, so let's get right into this. The intro was a little corny this time, so I'm going to kind of skip over that. I wish we had a group dance instead, but I'll go diving straight into the dances in just a minute. But I do want to start off by saying I was a little bit underwhelmed with this week, at least in terms of dancing, because there's only one dance that really stood out to me tonight. And I think that's just because Halloween night is usually one of my favorite nights of each season, but this week the energy just felt kind of off, and I don't know if it's because Wicked Night was so fun for me, or if it's because the social media stuff has been very, very draining as of late, but this is just a heads up because I might seem a little bit more critical or negative in this video than I usually am, but I do believe in authenticity, so I want to be straightforward about my thoughts, and I'll explain why I kind of feel this way more at the end of the video. So leading off tonight, we had Whitney and Mark. The timing was a little bit off. I saw it, and I'm glad that Cheryl pointed it out. Everybody kind of pointed it out, actually, so I'm glad that that was addressed. Otherwise, I enjoyed that dance. I don't really care what people say. I know people don't like this woman, but I enjoyed the dance. I think she's a good dancer, and the timing issues weren't nearly as obvious as they were in her contemporary. I think she performed well. I like the choreography, and I've defended Whitney a little bit because I do think that the way people are jumping on her has gotten a little bit ridiculous. However, I do kind of understand the frustration because it does feel like they're having a little bit of double standards with her. I mean, Derek blamed the timing issues on the difficulty of the dance, and I just think that's kind of a dumb critique, because if the timing was off due to difficulty, then the difficulty needs to be decreased so that the dance can be cleaner and there won't be timing issues. So I was just kind of like, really? That's the critique you gave? Oh, right, Mark's your best friend. Right, okay. I am glad, however, that not everyone overscored her. Bruno's 10 was a little bit suspicious, because I'm kind of like, there was a mistake. Like, even though I'm kind of defending Whitney right now, there were timing mistakes, and it wasn't her best dance. So if we gave her a quick step a 10 last week, why are we giving this a 10 when it was worse, at least in my opinion? I mean, but like I said, I did enjoy the dance. Not my favorite from her, and it didn't stand out to me tonight, but I just feel like she's getting too much hate. Feel how you want to feel about her as a person, but I'm talking about her as a dancer, okay? And, she's not perfect. She's human. Yes, she has a dance degree, but, people have, a lot of other people on this show have dance experience as well. So it's like, why are we only mad at her? I feel like everybody was hopping on Hilaria, and now that she's gone, and I'm not a fan of her either, but she's gone, so now people feel like they have to hop on somebody else, and it's just I just don't feel like the negativity is necessary. If you don't like this woman, don't vote for her. It's as simple as that. Well, next we have Jordan and Ezra, and I saw the recent interview of Ezra talking about how this week's been difficult for him, so I was a little bit nervous going into this week for them, because this, if you haven't been watching, is one of my favorite couples, and it could have been, like, this could have been, contemporary is something that everybody was anticipating for Jordan, but also, personally for me, contemporaries on this show are very hit or miss. And I won't be biased. There was a moment in the choreography, like, I know the song is Elastic Heart, so you know you want to do stuff with, like, hearts beating and stuff, but the part where they were doing, like, the heartbeat pumping on the chest, they were kind of just, like, standing there doing that for a few seconds too long, and that caused the choreography to feel kind of empty to me. And there were timing issues. I know, like, people were posting, like, they actually were in sync. Yes, they were, but there were a few other moments where I was like, oh, were they out of time there? Correct me if I'm wrong. I could totally be wrong. But, you know, there were a few moments where I was like, ooh, was that intentional? Or was there a timing issue? The prop personally didn't bother me, but I did notice that there were some clunky moments and that the intention of the dance may not have fully come through. It wasn't my favorite of Jordan's dances, to be honest, but I did think it was good. The scoring, however, whack, and we will get into that later, but I don't, here's the thing, I don't necessarily think that Jordan was underscored, but Whitney was not that much better than her, and they both had mistakes. So if Whitney's getting a 10, why is Jordan getting 8s? That feels very off to me. Like, even Whitney, and even Val and Alex, Whitney Carson and Val and Alex were kind of like, huh? In the background, so, like, even they clocked it. And I felt validated when I saw that. But I'll end this on a more positive note. I thought the little dance that they did before the transition into the next dance was really cute, and both Julianne and Robert kind of hopped in there, and I was like, you know what, this is cute. I'm glad they just kind of, like, eased into it, and it didn't seem to weigh on Jordan too much. But, you know, I'm excited for her next week. She has a jazz dance next week. Again, I don't love the fact that they have contemporary and jazz on this show, but I do think she'll do well with the jazz, especially with the theme next week. So I have high hopes for her, rooting for Jordan. She is my girl. She's my number one. I've been a fan of hers for a long time. So go Jordan. Love you. All right, next we have Andy and Emma. First of all, him shading Derek was funny. And in all honesty, this wasn't like a bad dance for him. It wasn't as good as his jazz, but it was okay. But he's just not doing content at the level that any other couple is doing, and he's very stompy. That whole dance was all Emma, and like people pointed out, they were trying to hide his bad footwork with the fog and with his costume. Apparently some people were also offended by this dance, but I'm not going to get into that. He might be improving. Like, he is improving. He is. I'd be lying if I said that he didn't, but he's not improving at the rate that everybody else is, and is just glaringly the weakest dancer left, and he has been for multiple weeks. I do think there are people that should have stayed over him, but, you know, like, the judges even said, like, oh, you could use your legs a little bit more. In other words, you could, you know, actually dance. But, like, my biggest issue is that him getting 7s is crazy if Jordan is getting 8s. This is where, and I'll get into her later, Cheryl disappointed me. I needed her to be more consistently tough tonight, because there were moments where she stuck to the rules, and I was like, okay, you know what, clock it, but at the same time, like, I'm like, how are you going to do that and then give Andy 7s? Really? Like, I love the man, but let's not act like he wasn't just, like, walking around, posing, stomping around. Like, I really do love Andy as a person. Like, he has gained a really big fan in me, but even his best dance is just miles below everyone else who's left, so I at least need, and I'll get into this later too, but I need the scoring to be consistent. Because if he stays after fair scoring, like, let's say they gave him 5s and he still stayed, then I'm like, okay, he can stay. Because that means people truly want him here over anyone else, really. But him being overscored is, like, skewing his overall score, which I do feel like it's unfair to other dancers who are improving more and are trying equally as hard. I don't get the argument, like, but he's trying. It's like, has everybody else not tried and improved? That's kind of, like, rude. to me. It's like rude to the other celebs. I'll get into this more later, but, you know, I kind of just wish they didn't coddle him so much, because it feels like they're purposefully skewing his scores and letting him stay, when if he was scored properly, it would be a more even playing field and we'd really be able to see that 50-50 judges score and fan votes and how much weight the fan votes actually have. Next, we have Elaine and Alan. I didn't acknowledge this at the beginning because I would have gone on a rant about it, but I wanted to keep this in her part of the video. I am devastated that Elaine was injured this week. If you've been watching this series, you'd know that Elaine is also one of my favorites this season and that I've been rooting for her really hard. I hate that she was injured this week, because I think an Argentine tango could have been absolutely amazing for her, and I know that I'm right because the rehearsal footage was pretty dang good from what we saw. And, you know, some people will disagree with this, but I thought her rehearsal footage was better than a good portion of the rest of the dances tonight, at least in my opinion. And Cheryl being an Elaine defender made me super happy. And she's an Argentine tango snob, so I'm glad she, you know, kind of stood up for them there, because I do feel like in past weeks they have been underscored. This dance had so much potential, especially because Elaine has such beautiful lines. You know, given what we saw, I would be okay with her getting 8s if the scoring had been more consistent, because again, like, Andy getting 7s, that should have at least gotten a 9, because the skill and difficulty level was astronomically superior for Elaine. And, you know, she's only a few years younger than Andy and also has, like, physical issues going on. So if we're doing the whole, like, age thing, we need to not have double standards, and we need to score consistently across the board, because yes, Elaine danced, like, 30 years ago, but then she got hit by a car. It's like, bruh, everybody has their own challenges and stuff, and so I feel like there's a lot of double standards against Elaine when it comes to the judging and the fans, and that's annoying to me. But anyway, I know she's back dancing this week, thank God. I love her, so I'm really hoping that this week will go well, but it's going to be tough next week because they have team dances, and she said she wasn't really gonna be dancing until Friday. So that makes me quite nervous for her, and I'll get into that later. But, you know, love Elaine, and with what we saw, she did a great job. So I'm really glad that America gave her another chance to be in the competition. And next we have Danielle and Pasha. So this is the point where my live, while I was watching it live at home, cut out. If you don't know, I'm a West Coast viewer, so I kind of have to cheat a little bit to actually watch the show live, but it cut out. I got booted off the server, and I was like, crud. So this is where I was kind of like, okay, you know what, I need to, like, take care of some things and go to bed, and figure some things out instead of waiting for the whole show to appear. So that's why this video is late. So sorry about that. But other than finding, as for Danielle and Pasha's dance, other than finding the ending a little bit abrupt and awkward, it was an American Smooth Viennese waltz, according to Cheryl Burke. Because I was gonna say, you know, from what I've seen, Viennese waltz is supposed to have a lot of hold, so I was like, there could have been more hold, but, you know, if it's the American Smooth version, which I know is less strict about hold, again, I'm not a ballroom dancer, so correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, I was kind of like, ooh, okay, like, there could have been more content there, but I thought it was a good dance. Danielle is an actress, so I do think there could have been, like, you know, she was talking about how, like, there's going to be this big reveal, I'm actually dead, and you're the one who killed me and everything. I do think there could have been more of a shock value in regards to the story. I think that concept could have been executed more, like, clearly. This wasn't my favorite dance of the night. I do feel like they were kind of hard on her compared to some of the others, the men. But Danielle is one of the ones I have been rooting for because I love her journey. And for people saying, like, oh, so-and-so is what this show is all about, I think Danielle is what this show is all about. Starting with no experience, improving steadily, fully dedicating herself to the process. Like, you know, I don't think there's a specific type of journey that this show is meant for, but I really do love seeing celebs like Danielle on this season, and I'm really glad that she's still in the game. I'm loving her journey so far, but I did predict her falling kind of middle of the pack this season, and we're starting to get to the point where I'm worried she might be in danger. And this, I feel that way because, like, I'm going to compare people from past seasons to this season. I do feel like Danielle could be the Allison Hannigan of this season, where she has this nostalgic factor. People love her on social media. She's, like, her journey is really likable, even though she's not the strongest dancer. Because she does have a lot of social media support, which is awesome, but she also is second lowest on the leaderboard at this point. Of course, Andy is beneath her, but I think she is the lowest on the leaderboard compared to everyone else, and that does make me kind of nervous for her in the upcoming weeks, but it looks like she is one of the dance team captains, so I hope she picked a good team. It looks like she picked Whitney and Mark, which, in my opinion, probably the smartest choice you could have made. But, we'll see how it plays out. I'm interested. I'm really hoping she can continue her journey on this show. Next, we have Robert and Whitney. And I know a lot of people have been wanting Robert to get those 10s for a while, but for me personally, please don't hate me for this because I love him, but he has not earned a 10 for me yet. And no, it's not because I think he's bad. I think he's doing fantastic for someone. Like, I'm a pretty harsh judge for someone who has no dance experience. For me, a 10 has to really wow me, and there's only been like a select few dances that have done that for me. I think he's doing fantastic for someone who has no prior experience, and he has had some dances I've really enjoyed so far. His jive and contemporary have been my favorites. I also enjoyed his jazz and his tango, but I didn't love his salsa or his cha-cha. This dance kind of falls like above that lower category for me, but is not my favorite, at least like in comparison to his other dances. And I have been kind of told that, the Argentine tango features the woman, so it's kind of his job here to support Whitney and make her look good. But, for me, I feel like the celeb should be highlighted in the dance because, it's Dancing with the Stars. And an example would be like Joey and Jenna's Argentine tango last year. Like, yes, he was lifting her and she was doing all the tricks and stuff like that, but we still saw a lot of content from him. And this kind of felt more like a Danny Amendola type dance from last year, who was lovely, but, kind of stopped dancing halfway through the competition, and we were just showing off how amazing Whitney is. This kind of felt like deja vu, and that's annoying to me, because Robert has showcased that he can execute the content when it's given to him. So I did feel like the 10s were a little bit of an overscore for me, but, I'm rooting for Robert. He's absolutely lovely. I thought it was so sweet that he called out Elaine during the interview portion, but his dance this week was just not my favorite because I know he's capable of more. Next, we have Jen and Jan. So this, unfortunately, is the couple that got eliminated this week, and I'm going to be honest, I did see it coming. Not that I wanted it to happen, but with it being Andy's birthday and Jen not improving score-wise, I mean, she got an 8 in week 2. And now we're at like week 7 and she's still getting 8s. So obviously she wasn't improving score-wise as much as everyone else. So I wasn't super surprised to see her going home tonight, especially after she scored so low in the marathon. But my thing about this dance is that it did feel kind of stationary for me in some places, at least for Jen. Like, I enjoyed the choreography, but I was like, oh, like, there were some moments where I felt like she wasn't doing as much content during some points of the dance. I've been pretty okay with the way she's been scored for the most part, but I do think they were kind of hard on her this week, and that made me sad because she looked really disappointed after her feedback from the judges, and I don't blame her. She knew she was in trouble after that. I think she was kind of starting to realizing time might be up for me. So, yeah, it's sad that she went home. I think she's a sweet person and she didn't really stand out to me, like, in comparison to some of the other couples. So it's like, yeah, I kind of saw this elimination creeping up, even with the Swifties, because that was the one thing that made me question. I was like, are the Swifties going to come through? Are they going to save her? Because they might, but didn't come through this time because this season is very stacked. All right, and next we have Alex and Val. I'm really glad that Alex told Val to be hard on her, because she has the ability, clearly, to execute very good choreography at a very high technical level. I feel like she hadn't been pushed to that level that she was capable of until this week, because those were real tears that I saw from her this time when she was being pushed, and that's the authenticity that I've been wanting from her for a while now. And Val with a tango, I knew it was going to be good, and it was. This was by far the standout of the night for me. Though, good God, those spiders in the background of her dance scared the crap out of me. But other than that, like, her ballroom in general has been very enjoyable for me this season so far. Like, like her quick step and her Viennese waltz were kind of like my favorites of hers. I know some people loved her contemporary. Personally, I actually preferred her ballroom. I will say, I know some people are not happy with Cheryl for giving her a 9 due to breaking hold. I personally am not angry, because I know Cheryl has always been a traditionalist, and I do know that you're not supposed to break hold during a tango. At least, like, you can only be out of hold at, like, the beginning or the end or something like that. Please correct me if I'm wrong, ballroom experts. But I do wish that there was some sort of consistency amongst the judges, because obviously Cheryl is a guest judge, but in the past, Len Goodman was very, very big about quickstep and tango being in hold and not breaking until the end of the dance. But now that that rule has kind of just been brushed off, so it seems. Sharna explained in her TikTok that they might be judging based on the American smooth version of the tango, which in that case, the hold rule is not as strict and thus would not be an issue for this dance. But the international tango, like the traditional tango, does have that rule. So I can understand the audience confusion, especially since most people watching the show and a lot of the new incoming Alex fans probably know little to nothing about ballroom and are thus like, what the F? But the outrage to me is a little bit ridiculous. I think that any nasty comments towards Cheryl, who is a ballroom legend, whether you like her or not, are seriously unwarranted. But I wouldn't have been mad if this was the first perfect score of the season, because I do think it's one of my favorite dances so far this season. And, you know, I said earlier that I think this season has clearly been like one versus another for a while now, but now it is very glaringly obvious that it's Alex versus Robert. And while I do find it unlikely that Robert is going to be beat when it comes to the votes, I do see a path for Alex to win, especially after this dance, because there have been 2 nights so far where she has been the clear standout for me, and that's been Disney night and this night. So we shall see, because I'm, like, some people are saying, oh, she might be a shock elim. I doubt that. I really think she's going to be top 2. I would be shocked if she's not at least the runner-up. And last but not least, at least for the single dance portion, we have Dylan and Daniela. First of all, poor Dylan. I broke my nose when I was 9, and I didn't find out until 10 years later that I'd actually broken it, but that was a scary moment. So I'm glad he seems to have recovered well, and I enjoyed his dance. I've been pretty critical of Dylan because I have felt like a lot of the time Daniela has been overpowering him and doing all the content while he kind of just like stood there and supported her, but he kept up with a very fast song this time. I do feel like half of the judges are kind of just talking about how hot he is. I wish they gave him more actual critique, because Bruno didn't give him any critiques. Cheryl was the only one who really critiqued him, and then Derek gave him like a slight correction, but like that's my problem with the judging. Like they're like, yeah, there's like this one little thing, but overall really, really good, and then just leave it at that, while with others it's like, well, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, but you know, good job anyway, I guess. And it's like, why do we have different energy for different contestants? But I thought that Dylan did a good job this week. I don't know if it was his best dance, but I do, like, I saw him keeping up. Like, that dance was fast. That's what I noted. I was like, that is a fast dance. And he, you know, maybe he did have a small little trip up at one point, but I was impressed, especially because he really started with 0 dance experience. You know, I think the mix of 7s, 8s, and 9s were, like, appropriate for him at this point. So then we get into the marathon, and woo-wee, I know that a few people are furious that Whitney beat Alex in this marathon. Personally, I was just mad that Elaine wasn't even given a pity point. Yes, I know she didn't dance, but let me be biased for a single second, because apparently being biased is not out of the realm for fans this year. But in all seriousness, I watched the dance marathon 3 times. Once, I watched it all the way through, like just to watch it. The second time, I watched just Alex. And then the third time, I just watched Whitney. And in my opinion, the camera angles very much favored Alex. So the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, Alex totally should have won that. Like, what the heck? But when I was just watching Whitney, she was doing some very good technical content in there as well. I think these were the correct top 2 for this marathon. Everyone else either like stopped dancing or made a mistake or looked a little sluggish in comparison. So I was like, yes, this is the correct top 2. Funnily enough, this is the only marathon that has not ticked me off when it comes to the winner. Mind you, I've only been watching since season 30, but the season 31 one low-key gives me PTSD. But that's another story. I wouldn't have been mad at either of them winning. If I had to pick, I probably would have picked Alex, because I just think she, outperformed Whitney a little bit. But I do think that the hate Whitney is getting for winning this is kind of ridiculous. I do think it was a pretty even matchup, and the judges were split on this. I know people are gonna be like, but Cheryl's the guest judge. Honey, Cheryl has more ballroom dance experience than Bruno and Carrie Ann. So in my opinion, her opinion, could be weighted more. Derek, Cheryl, they're, probably roughly on the same level in terms of experience, and they were split. So it's like, it really could have gone either way. However, the highlight for me was Mark and Val being goofballs when the song ended and, spinning around like that. That was hilarious. And that's the type of energy that we should be having here on Dancing with the Stars. Not the toxicity, not the hate on social media. It's getting negative for me, which is making it harder to enjoy the show, and I hate that for everybody. I mean, even the celebs and pros are like, oh my god, like, is it always this bad? And that kind of leads us into our elimination, and like I said, unfortunately, Jen was eliminated this week. Oh, wait, no, not that Jen. Another Jen has been eliminated on Halloween night. Kind of weird that it happened twice back to back, but like I said, this one I did see coming, unfortunately, especially with her scoring so low in the marathon. And, with that, I'll kind of just dive straight into my overall thoughts of the night, because I feel like the elimination ties into what I'm going to say next. Because, a lot of people are saying, why wasn't it Andy? He was clearly worse than her. What's going on? And yes, should Andy have gone a few weeks ago based on pure dancing? Yes. He should have. However, I'm not going to be one of these people who gets angry at people who vote for him, because fans are entitled to vote however they want to vote. I just feel like, and the reasoning shouldn't matter. You should vote for who you want to see continue in the competition, period. After all, like, there are people on, who might argue with me if I tell you exactly how I'm voting. You might be like, well, Karina, you said so-and-so's a good dancer. Why aren't you voting for them? It's a personal decision, and there are reasons as to why I've decided to vote or not vote for somebody. My biggest problem, and I've addressed this before, is that he's being coddled by the judges, and the judges are supposed to remain objective and neutral. So that's when I feel like he's receiving favoritism in some ways, like he's almost being overcompensated because they feel bad for him. And that's why, like, I feel like there's so much harder on better dancers like Jen, Elaine, Jordan, even Alex sometimes. While with Andy, they're like, oh my gosh, you're just so, like, lovable, like, you're so great. And then they don't give him actual critiques. And it's like, even though he is still getting the lowest scores, it's frustrating because it's like, was he really only 1 point worse than Jordan? Like, I know this wasn't Jordan's best dance, but really? Like, it's annoying, because it's like, yeah, I know he has less experience than she does or whatever, but it's like, when we start judging people on different scales, it starts punishing people for being good, which is dumb to me. And I know some people are even starting to worry that he's going to make the finals. For me, this is starting to look like a tree trunk. Oh, I'm sorry. Harry Jowsey arc. I hate mentioning that man. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan. But the glaring difference between this comparison is that Andy is much more likable and actually a gem of a human being. But what I'm trying to say is this pattern is starting to feel similar in terms of like fan votes and stuff. Because let's look at it this way. Mira and Mauricio got eliminated 5th and 6th, right? And that's kind of like the similar placements, the same actually, now that I think about it, right? Same placements that Scott and Jen got. And it's kind of like, Harry should have left before them, but this is how the show goes sometimes. But then Lele Pons got eliminated, and then fan favorite Barry Williams got eliminated. Harry outlasted both of them. Side note, Barry is the type of older contestant that I root for. I'm really not trying to be mean when I say this, but he's a decade older than Andy and danced circles around him. Like, that week 1 Foxtrot was better than pretty much anything Andy ever did. And Barry also improved a lot more. And so I'm kind of like, that's the type of older, cute old man contestant that I kind of fell for, because he was actually improving and putting on a show and doing the content and choreography. And that's a whole nother story. But all that being said, once Harry started actually knocking out fan favorites like Lele and Barry, he was sent packing. People got sick of him, and they realized, like, yeah, no, he should not have beat them. Now we're done. And I think we're going to get a similar case with Andy here, which makes me upset and nervous, but we'll see how it goes. Because I have a feeling that Andy is going to knock out, like, a fan favorite. And people are going to realize, wait, these people are at risk of going home over him? Oh no. And then they're going to stop voting for him. Because I do notice a lot of people are like, I just want Whitney to go before him. Y'all, that's not going to happen. Like, she would have to dance really bad for that to happen, because even with her getting a lot of hate, she also has a lot of fans. And she's getting really good scores, y'all. It's not gonna happen. Like, I don't know if she's a lock for the finale, but I think she's gonna make it there. So if you're hoping that Andy's gonna stay over her, I don't think that's gonna happen. It may take another week or two, but I'm worried for people like Elaine, Jordan, Danielle. Danielle less so actually, but like, I'm starting to get nervous. Maybe even Dylan. Like, I feel like Alex and Robert are safe, but anyone else, it's like, roll the dice. We don't know what's gonna happen. So that's why I'm starting to get nervous, because I'm like, is he really gonna start knocking out some of the really, really good dancers on this season, and we'll miss out on seeing them? That would be disappointing for me, to be perfectly honest. Since we're still kind of on, like, the judging scores thing, I'll briefly go over Cheryl. I liked Cheryl's overall, like, critique, because she is a traditionalist, she is a ballroom expert, and I do think we need that on this show, because we don't have a Len Goodman on this show, and we never will again, unfortunately. RIP, dance heaven. I hope you're dancing happily up there, Len. But in all seriousness, we need, like, a ballroom expert that has a spine, because I feel like, and I felt like Cheryl could have been that person, but, like, the reason I say this is because I listened to her podcast, because I do like hearing what the former pros have to say, and she was tough on her podcast, but that's why I was disappointed with her, because on her podcast, she really gave her reasonings as to why she scored the way she did, but I felt like she was a little bit too nice to some people, notably Andy, and then brought out the toughness for other people. So I was like, can we keep the energy consistent, please? So that was kind of annoying to me. But, Halloween night, unfortunately, was a little bit underwhelming for me this year. I've been watching, like I said, since season 30, and so far, I do think this has been my least favorite Halloween night that I've seen. And it's because only Alex's dance stood out for me. Even last year, where the dancing, overall was weaker, but Halloween night, I'm still haunted by Chandler being robbed of a perfect score and Jen being eliminated, but the dances that night were overall good and enjoyable. There were multiple standouts to me that night. I will say, though, major props to the makeup team. It's no wonder they keep winning Emmys in this category, because the makeup, like Alex and Val, Jordan and Ezra, they looked amazing this week. Whitney and Mark's makeup, oof, it was fantastic. So major props to them. And, you know, next week we have team dances. And I think that's going to really show, like, who's going to start to struggle. And it really could shift the leaderboard because it looks like Danielle and Andy are team captains. And, you know, so they've picked teams. And it looks like Danielle did pick Whitney to be on her team. So that'll be interesting. And I do feel like this is the point in the competition where a lot of celebs start to feel the heat and the weight of, like, oh shoot, like this is starting to get really, really hard and tiring and are going to start to feel the fatigue. So I'm both nervous but also excited for what we will see. But yeah, I'm going to end it off now with that. So I hope you guys enjoyed Halloween night. I hope you're excited for next week. If you watched this or listened to this entire video, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Make sure to check out my, my dedication video to Jen's dances, which will be out within the next few days. And follow me on TikTok because I post them on there as well. And I will see you all next time for Rock and Roll Night. Bye!